And so that, in a nutshell, is how you get rid of atopic dermatitis that your doctor won't tell you and the NHS won't tell you. Okay, eczema from the top. All right, so the first thing we need to know, it's a Th2 mediated condition. What does that mean? It means that this is the type of inflammatory process that your body's currently using. All right, at the start of it, so in the acute phase, that's when it's just starting out, it's Th2, but it will move over to Th1 mediated condition in the chronic phase. If you've had it for a long time, the immune system is now in that Th1 phase. Now, Th2 also skews your immune system over to an IgE type response, which is an allergy. Okay, and one of the most common things, over 56% of people with atopic dermatitis have an IgE sensitivity, which is an allergy, to one of the commensal skin microbes, which is staph. It's naturally there, okay? So don't go, right, I need to get rid of it all, kill it all with fire. Well, definitely not fire, but with antimicrobial. Staphylococcus, it's normally on the skin, but because of this type of inflammation and the development of an IgE, an allergic response to that commensal skin microbe, it's a problem. So this is the first thing, is to understand which mechanism is producing the redness, right? Because the redness is one of the key factors. The skin's dry because, in most cases, of this underlying inflammatory condition. If it was just dry skin and there wasn't that kind of red layer underneath, we'd know that it's much more likely to be a malabsorption problem, so with the gut, or you're not getting the right nutrients in the diet, so your skin can manufacture a healthy barrier layer. What else is happening at this point in time? Th2, this type of inflammation suppresses the production of something called filaggrin. So what's filaggrin? Filaggrin is the master skin protein. It's required for making something called natural moisturizing factor, which is exactly what it sounds like. That's why the skin's dry. It's because we're not manufacturing filaggrin, which is required for a healthy skin barrier layer, and it's not moisturized because we're not making natural moisturizing factor. So this is the problem. We've got this production of Th2 inflammation, and that's suppressing production of filaggrin, a natural moisturizing factor. So this means that at the surface level, if we draw the skin barrier like this, it should be like that. But instead, we're missing pieces or they're broken down. What does this mean? This creates these secondary problems with eczema where everyone thinks it starts on the skin, doesn't start on the skin, we'll come to that. But because it's now a skin problem, we've got dust mites and microbes on the skin starting to make their way through that skin barrier and trigger the immune system. So the dendritic cells, these guys with the long arms, are now collecting these bacterial antigens, handing them over to the other immune cells, and that inflammation cascade continues. It's a problem. So this is the value of having some sort of barrier cream or an additional thing you can put on the skin to help seal that whilst we're getting rid of the Th2 inflammation that's inside. But notice, because now I've got this filaggrin suppression, the skin barrier is starting to break down. Now the immune system is further ramping up these inflammatory processes, the IgE and the Th2. So you can see we've got this feedback loop happening here. That's why it's such a difficult condition to get on top of, is because once it starts and the skin barrier starts to break down, now you're in this loop. So that's why putting a cream on, especially one with antimicrobial properties, such as something with zinc in it, oregano, but remember, mix it 1 to 10, 1 to 20, keep it low because it is quite powerful stuff. Or you can use some of the other antimicrobials. If you have a secondary infection such as staphylococcus or streptococcus and any fluid on top is yellow, this is normally an indicator of something like impetigo. We need to use an antimicrobial. But if it's inflamed, swollen and painful, go to your primary care physician because it's likely that you have cellulitis or a secondary infection that is most likely going to be treated with antibiotics. Antibiotic cream on the surface first if you can, but you may need oral antibiotics for that. Infections are serious. Like that's a next level versus eczema, which is a chronic pain in the ass condition. So this is the surface of the condition. How do we fix this? Well, as you can see, we can't fix it here. We can control the symptoms, but we can't fully fix it here, right? So if anyone's like, oh, I need a miracle cream, or I read this thing and this cream does this, it's all happening here. We haven't solved this. This is the root cause. So let's have a look at it now. So what's contributed? Where's this Th2 inflammation coming from? What are the things that contribute to it? So there are 4 key things that we talk about in the group sessions and on one-to-one calls. First one is diet, biomes, toxins, and stress. These are the core 4. There are a few other things that do contribute to a Th2 skew in the immune system. However, the levers that we have that we can actually control the condition with, they're here. Diet, biomes, toxins, and stress. Let's go through them quickly. Diet. Number 1, you have an inflammatory type diet, lots of refined foods, high sugars, things like that, or you're missing key nutrients. The immune system is one of the most expensive things to run in the body, number one, in terms of energy, and number two, in terms of nutrient requirement. Think of all these processes that are happening, your nutrient reserve is going to be depleted. Okay, so that's the first thing with a diet. Biomes, what do we mean biomes? Firstly, skin biome. So your skin should be producing something called, where's space, defensins. Again, just like natural moisturizers, in fact, it does exactly what it says on the tin. Defensins are something which will help balance that skin microbiome. It's a natural antimicrobial the skin produces. So we're not producing enough of these as well. So we can get an overgrowth of things like Staphylococcus, Malassezia, Candida. That's when these secondary infections become a problem. An overgrowth becomes a problem because of the absence of defensins. So that's the first biome. The second biome is my favorite, the microbiome. That's right. What the heck is a microbiome? If I can spell it. Right. What is a microbiome? It's the collection of microbes. Specifically, we're talking about the gut microbiome. So where are my camera ranges? Right. The gut microbiome. So here is your gut lining. Okay, we'll do it on both sides so you get a really good idea for what's going on inside. These are called enterocytes, right? And this represents your gut, right? So the food is moving in here, and then the poop, that's like there, it's starting to develop. Okay, in here, we have trillions of microbes. There's more microbial cells, bacteria, viruses, protozoa, sometimes some parasites. We have 10 times more of these microbes, these cells, these microbial cells, than we do skin cells in the body. All right, it's been called the forgotten organ that doesn't quite belong to us. Now, what jobs do these microbes have? What are they even doing there? Well, they help us break down food. They produce neurotransmitters and they look after the gut lining. It's a really important point. They're looking after these enterocytes. They're looking after these gut cells. How do they look after the gut cells? They have a two-way relationship with the gut cells. They produce something called short-chain fatty acids, which are fuel for these enterocytes. How do they produce the short-chain fatty acids? They will take in, if you're eating it, non-soluble fiber and turn that into short-chain fatty acids. If the fiber's not going in, and you don't have the microbes, you're not producing short-chain fatty acids, and the gut barrier function is going to start to break down. What happens then? Well, we get something called leaky gut, which is where food, bacterial proteins and toxins, and heavy metals will start to move through into your bloodstream, which is here. That's a really big problem because what do you think these dendritic cells will start to do when they go, oh, there's a blood cell, there's a blood cell, there's a blood cell. Hey, what's that? Oh, what's that? What's that? There's food, there's bacteria. What do we do? Right, ramp up inflammation. What type of inflammation gets used in extracellular issues? Th2 type inflammation. Okay, so what you have is a gut issue, a digestive problem, a gut microbiome problem, not a skin condition. Notice most of these conditions can be solved by rectifying the issues with the gut. Yes, we have the liver, that's involved as well. That's the picture of the liver there, if you can see it. The liver, bacterial LPS, which are lipopolysaccharides, are entering through into the bloodstream, making their way through to the liver. These are really difficult for the liver to get rid of, which is why, as a secondary, sometimes we'll use things like dandelion, milk thistle, globe artichoke to help get this working, get your liver working a bit better, but it's not normally a primary. We'll use it as a way to support the body during this process. So that's the biomes. We need to rebalance the biomes. What does that mean? When we say rebalance, we do more of the good, less of the bad. That's a gut reset. Third thing, toxins. Your body's naturally producing toxins all the time. Anyway, it goes into your lymphatic system, then to your liver and your kidneys, then out the body, and then obviously through the stool as well. Your lymphatic system does not have a heart to beat it like the circulatory system. Therefore, it relies entirely upon mechanical stimulation. What's mechanical stimulation? Get moving, baby. Gotta get moving, all right? It works by the muscle massaging the lymph, which has your immune system cells in it, and the toxins that the tissues are getting rid of, it has those in it. Plus, when you inhale, just behind here in your diaphragm, there's one of the largest lymph glands, all right? And when you're breathing deeply, you're also massaging that and pumping the lymph system. So that's the importance of getting rid of toxins. Again, you've got heavy metals, mold exposure, all of the other things that your body's exposed to, which your liver's going to have to deal with. That's why as a secondary, we'll go through a detox process. Once, never engage in a detox process before you've normalized gut function. What do we mean normalized gut function? 1 to 2 healthy, smooth like a sausage, medium brown every day that doesn't smell foul to the nose. If it does smell foul, one of the main jobs of your nose is to detect microbes in the environment that may be harmful. Okay, that's why if you leave a chicken out on the worktop after you've cooked it for like 2 weeks, it stinks. It's because your nose, one of its jobs is to detect microbes in the environment. So if your bowel movements are really offensive, it means there are microbes in the gut and in the stool that shouldn't be there. especially in large amounts. So that's your toxins. And then stress, your autonomic nervous system is responsible for running all of your passive processes like digestion, your liver function, your kidney function. When the autonomic nervous system, it has two modes that it can work in. One is rest and digest, which is a good one. And then we have fight and flight, which again, it's a good one, but only for a short period of time. All right. So your autonomic nervous system is taking cues from your subconscious mind, is taking cues for the total amount of inflammation in the body. But also, when you're in fight and flight mode, the function of your liver is suppressed by 20%, your function of your kidney is suppressed by 20%, your gut function slows down, stomach acid production slows down. So all of this stuff, the body says, whoa, we're spending too much energy there. We need to really focus on this other issue that's popped up. We need to prioritize heart, lungs, muscle tissue because we need to get out of the situation. That's what fight and flight does to the body. The body's very smart. So we need to move it back into rest and digest. How do we do that? We stimulate something called the vagus nerve. Vagus nerve. So how do we do that? So number one, remove the triggers, remove those stress triggers as much as possible. I know the condition itself is stressful, but breath work, meditation, yoga, going for walks, going for a run, those kinds of things can help to stimulate that vagus nerve. So that, in a nutshell, is how you get rid of atopic dermatitis that your doctor won't tell you and the NHS won't tell you.